Hey folks, I'm JC from One Shot Adventures, and today I'm going to review another Vaesen horror adventure, The Town That Drowned. In this short adventure, the investigators are dispatched to explore a sunken medieval town that only rises once a year. Rumored to be filled with vast treasures, the players can perhaps find the resources that they need to build a formidable headquarters. However, because we all know that this is a game about Nordic horror, this town also holds a horrible secret that will threaten the lives and sanity of those who dare tread into its abandoned streets. So, does The Town That Drowned deserve time at your table? Well, get ready for some spoilers, because not only am I going to give you a full review, but I'll also give you game masters some tips and tricks on how to run this one like a pro. The Town That Drowned was written by Morten Grice, and is part of the Free League Workshop, which means that it was written by a fan and published on DriveThruRPG. Since it's officially Indie Gaming Month, I thought I'd give a shout out to an unofficial adventure. I think that it's wonderful that Free League and so many other RPG companies allow fans to write and sell their own adventures. If you're an RPG company not doing this in the year 2023, shame, shame, shame on you. The Town That Drowned is a mere 13 pages long, and the entire adventure is set in the titular city, which only contains a handful of locations. As a result, you can easily get through this adventure in just one session. In fact, I ran it a couple of weeks ago for a new group of 3 Vaesen players, and we finished it in just over 2 hours. The background of the adventure is this. Centuries ago, this town was an up-and-coming merchant town. A local woman named Magdalene had inherited a couple of mines, and she won the jackpot. She got richer and richer until eventually she made her way up and became guildmaster of the town. But her greed was endless, and she began putting ridiculous proclamations all over town, taxing everything, driving away the poor people, and just taking more and more for herself. Her greed hit its height when she declared that the Neck, which is this devilish spirit known for playing enchanted music in the waterways of the Nordics, owed her taxes for playing his music. Well, the Neck was really insulted and flooded the town, destroying it and drowning it and its greedy inhabitants forever. And during this process, Magdalene transforms into a bog-sow, a razor-backed pig that still hungers endlessly for gold and treasure. This town has remained at the bottom of a lake for centuries, but once a year, during a certain moonless night, it rises again and can be explored. For it's said that when the Neck drowned the town, a single innocent soul was trapped there, and on this special night once a year is her only chance to try to escape. The Town That Drowned is designed to easily plug into any Vaesen campaign, and I like how the author even includes different names for the town and some key NPCs, depending on whether you want to set it in Germany or Sweden or Denmark, etc. Now, this universality does come with a little bit of a price because there's not a clear hook for the players to get involved other than looking for lost treasure, and I was a little disappointed as a GM that the adventure foisted this work on me, especially since I run Vaesen as a lot of one-shots, but I was able to kind of create my own setup, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The adventure begins with the PCs arriving at night to this town with Emma, their carriage driver, and her teenage apprentice Ola. While the town is dark and abandoned, 2 glowing lanterns in the distance will draw the PCs to them. There are only a few places to visit in the town, and each one will tell more about the story of this town. There's some really great creepy reveals at many of these locations. For example, the PCs approaching the church will hear a sermon still going on inside, and if they creep inside that church, they'll see medieval worshippers still standing there listening to a priest who's speaking in some strange tongue that they won't be able to understand. Suddenly, one of the PCs will see a long dead friend in the crowd who will warn them that death is coming and they have to get out of this town. And then if the players interfere with the service at all, the crowd of worshippers transforms into a pack of ghouls who chase after them and try to devour them. It's really creepy. And there's another location where the players can find Magdalene's bedroom, where she's still weirdly under the covers, writhing and tossing. And if the PCs disturb the bed, they'll find her horrifically transforming into the bog sow, which will guarantee to send them running out of that estate like a scene from Scooby-Doo. If you like jump scare style horror, there's some great scenes in this adventure. Now, strewn throughout the town are lots of various treasures. This town was really wealthy as driven by Magdalene's greed. And the adventure kind of wants the PCs to be running around, grabbing anything and everything in sight. But honestly, this didn't motivate my group. Hold on, let me cut to one of my players who's still trapped in this town to explain this issue.
I have a question for you. If you were in a town full of treasure, and you know that this town was cursed and its people killed because they were greedy, why would I come here to be greedy? Everyone knows what happens in the Cave of Wonders. You steal the lamp, you get the cave in.
Did you notice there's a gold thing right next to you? Are you sure you don't want to take that?
Not a chance. There's an evil pig around here who's gonna kill me if I touch anything.
And this was the exact problem that my group saw. Vaesen is an investigative horror adventure where players are not typically motivated by wealth. So there's a very good chance your PCs won't touch a single precious thing. Now, this doesn't break the adventure in any way, but it does risk that the PCs are going to need some extra personal motivation to explore this town. As the PCs are exploring, they will be stalked by the bog sow, aka Magdalene the Guildmaster. This thing is brutal. It's got razor-crusted spines all over itself. It can toss the PCs around easily, can trample them, kill them in just a couple of attacks. At first, it will stay in the shadows and watch, but then, like other Vaesen adventures, things will escalate. First, one of the NPCs, the carriage driver or her apprentice, will disappear, lured into the town by the promise of that treasure. Then the bog sow will get more aggressive, even destroying the PC's coach, which is their best route to escape the town. And then finally, Magdalene the bog sow will come for their lives. Fortunately for the PCs, the greedy Magdalene still loves her treasure, and tossing some gold and silver her way will cause her to get distracted and devour it, giving the PCs a few more seconds to try to escape from her. And while all of this is happening, the players are on a real time limit because the town will sink again at dawn, drowning everyone still standing on those cobblestone streets. And the adventure helpfully includes a table of approximately how long it takes to explore each area in town, so GMs can very easily keep track of the time in this adventure.
Oh, it would have been cool if you put a clock on the table so that we all know exactly how much time we have left before we drowned.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. Eventually, the PCs will stumble upon the town's Pillar of Shame, a monument scattered with the skulls of the poor that tells the story about how there's still one innocent person still trapped in this town. This creates an unexpected twist, and with some investigation, the players will find a young woman, Matilda Gooseherd, who is still imprisoned in the town hall's jail. But once she's freed and leaves the town will sink away forever, never to be seen again. If it all plays out the way it should, the adventure concludes with the PCs rescuing the innocent soul, their coach loaded up with treasure, and fleeing the town as it sinks back into the lake, a furious supernatural boar hot on their heels. So that's the town that drowned. So what do I think? Actually, let me rescue my player from this town and we'll talk about it together. First, let me tell you what I really liked about this adventure as the GM. The setting of the adventure is awesome. The adventure pulls from real Nordic legends, ones I hadn't heard of, about towns sunken in lakes. And I love the idea that the investigators have only a handful of hours to explore this town. Some of the set pieces like that church are really creepy. And I like how easy it is to insert this adventure into a campaign. And it really fits into Vaesen's unique system for building out your castle. For players who are into the resource building part of Vaesen, This adventure will be really fun because success will guarantee that they come back with enough resources to add a couple of cool new rooms onto their castle. By the way, I also like how this adventure could easily port into other settings. The idea of a cursed sunken town loaded with gold and silver makes me want to run it as a pirate adventure. Excuse me, didn't you promise to let me free by now, please? Anybody? Now, I do have a couple of issues with this adventure. First, my biggest issue, there's no map included in the adventure. This makes it really hard to GM because you don't know exactly where the locations in the town are in relationship to each other. So I ended up creating my own map for the town, which you can download, by the way. Just check the link in the description below. Second, unless the PCs are just into treasure hunting, the adventure just doesn't provide players with much motivation. There's no mysterious letter or correspondence from an old friend or sudden strange event that catches the attention of the society in this adventure. So GMs have to come up with their own motivation for players.
I agree. I found myself asking, why were we at this town? What made this town so special that we needed to investigate it now? Sure, there's treasure and it only surfaces once a year, but this town has been doing this for 500 years. Why do we go there now? Even if the motivation is getting the innocent soul out, players don't even know the innocent soul exists until you find the pillar of shame in the town, which explains that piece.
I later fixed this issue by creating a letter from an old friend who discovered the location of the sunken town, and he writes the PCs asking them to join him on an expedition there. Furthermore, this friend tells the PCs that there are 2 apocryphal Bibles said to be in this town. These are old books that had lost lore on Vaesen inside them, and they were potentially dangerous in the wrong hands. So this gave the PCs a second motivation beyond just treasure hunting to go into the town. They were looking for that knowledge. And this works really well because the adventure already describes an old Bible inside the church, which also gives a good reason for the PCs to go there and experience that weird, creepy scene with the worshippers. And then I say that the friend actually got sick, on the way to the town, so he couldn't attend, but he sent his son, Ola, in his place. But Ola, the teenager who's helping the carriage driver, turns out to be this greedy teenage monster who's really only there to get treasure and complicate the PC's lives while in the town, like disappearing at the wrong town or getting drunk off of some old bottles of wine. Finally, most Vaesen adventures portray the Vaesen as sympathetic in some way. But here, by the time the PCs meet her, Magdalene is really just an angry warthog. And there's nothing in her backstory that portrays her as sympathetic at all. She's sort of like Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter, remorseless, power-hungry, greedy, and always coming up with ludicrous rules for the town, like banning alms for the poor at the church. And the one NPC in the adventure who does know more about Magdalene, Matilda, the innocent soul, well, she isn't connected to her in any real way. Matilda's just a random peasant girl who got locked up for being poor.
I do think the villain felt flat here. Now, I'm not typically that mad when a villain feels a little flat or one-sided, but Magdalene, the guildmaster, had absolutely no reason to do anything other than kill players and, oh, shiny. If I were running this adventure, I would make her have more of a reason as to why she's greedy and why that greed gets her turned into a sow. Maybe Magdalene wants to resurrect her dead husband, and she needs gold and silver for the spell. But then the spell goes awry, and she messes with the neck. I also like the idea that maybe the innocent soul, Matilda, is the guildmaster's daughter, who hates what her mother is doing and decides to go all Robin Hood on her. And that's why she's locked up and considered as the innocent soul instead of any of the other townspeople. As it was how I played it, Magdalene was not sympathetic at all, and you do not feel bad about saving her. There should be a moral quandary. You want that one player to go, hey, let's save Magdalene. I largely consider myself a sympathetic player, but I'm not saving Professor Umbridge.
I really like that daughter angle. Like maybe Matilda was working against her mom's greed, and finally her mom had just had enough and had locked her away. Now, Magdalene actually came to regret this because this was her daughter or stepdaughter or whatever, but she knows that if Matilda escapes the town, she'll never see her again. So she's actually trying to prevent this from happening, but she'll never actually harm Matilda herself because it's her daughter. And Matilda can explain this all to the PCs, begging them not to hurt her stepmom, who she still cares about on some level. This would add a lot of dimension into these characters and their battle with that bogso as the adventure goes on. So that's The Town That Drowned. So what do I think? I think that it's a strong premise, but missing some key components that make it a great Vaesen adventure. Now, those components are easy to add back in if you're willing to do a little bit of work, but as a GM, just get prepared to do that work. It also has the issue that if you want to run a Vaesen adventure starring a giant cursed boar, this adventure is competing with the Nightsow, an official adventure that I also reviewed recently. And if you only want to run one giant cursed pig adventure, this one just isn't as strong as that one. Although it plays out very differently, so I suppose you could replace the type of creature Magdalene is in this adventure to differentiate the two adventures, but I just couldn't come up with any like Vaesen or other monstrous foes that best represent greed as well as a giant pig does. But if you have some suggestions on other types of creatures that Magdalene could be in this adventure, let me know in the comments below. But if you're running an extended Vaesen campaign or need an adventure to insert between two other ones, especially one that doesn't require a lot of prep on the behalf of a GM, definitely consider this one. So Saffron, from a player perspective, what did you think?
I liked quite a few things about this adventure, but the main thing that I really liked was the setup. I tend to enjoy more vibey role-playing games like Call of Cthulhu, so the setup basically being a Nordic horror twist on Atlantis with hordes of treasure and a Professor Umbridge-style villain was really interesting to investigate further. As someone who's not really into games that remind me of the third act of a Marvel movie, this was a fantastic 2 hours.
Well, there you have it. And don't forget, if you'd like to use all the virtual tabletop assets that I created for The Town That Drowned, like that opening letter, the town map, and tokens, see the link in the description below. Also, if you want to avoid being gored by a giant cursed angry supernatural pig, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. The next subscribes to me, you should too. Until next time, I'm JC. And just remember, when you're in a town sunken by its own greed, you probably shouldn't touch the gold.